now to Hamed. Children depicting everyday life as breathing spaces. And Hamed, the same sort of time phase and the same piece of white paper get waved around as previously. So would you like to start?
Okay. I am used to introducing myself as a person who works with a cameraman. After that, I am a teacher. The act of photography, still or motion pictures, has been the locus of my action in the classroom. I have been concentrating on how a student can be empowered through the self-expression using visual and textual language. I believe that the dynamic relation inside the process of storytelling through photography give rise to form of proximity with the world around us. I have met my student halfway within the overall paradigm of everyday life. The pace, rush, chaos, and complexity of everyday life in the modern world cause us to break away from life in understanding, transmitting meaning, and representing the existence of the time we spend. Everyday life has become for us akin to a fantasy that, despite the experimental contact with it, whenever we want to return to it and describe a sketch of it, we realize that we are locked in the absence of narrative. The blurred image of what we have experienced is like a vanished dream. The contemplation on everyday routine can give us vision about the quality of life and to what extent aspects of this quality have been instilled into our minds. Thus, sub-narrative gain identity and consistency. Using the act of photography and stepping into the paradigm of everyday life as a form of resistance has been repeated many times before. For me, however, photographic act and the using of photographic tools are two different methods. Stirring the tea while adding the sugar helps dissolve and distribute the sweetener. You can use a pencil for this process, but you cannot call the action that is done writing. In most experiences that using the practice of photography in research, people get into the production of photograph as a way of visualizing and illustrating what is being discussed. It amazes me how it's possible to mention participation with companion or using the act of photography when the event took place just over a period of days or even weeks, because you could not get acquainted with the photographic act without learning by practicing. Photographic acts facilitate presence in the field of culture and give people the opportunity to express themselves. Even the most trivial photograph display the arrangement of human perception and social connection of human being. But the conscious use of photography requires timing, requires training, and the unconscious use of anything is far from the meaning of participation. As such, I will be contemplating the following question as I enter each workshop. How is it possible to read the content of photograph? What are the aesthetic criteria of photographic experiences? Is there a clear distinction between the multiple work published in cyberspace and the experiences of a student in an artistic workshop? What, if any, would an aesthetic examination of use work contribute to the evaluation of the action taken in workshop? And finally, how is it possible to gauge the process of photographic narrative workshops? Here and now, I am a student in Reggio Childhood Studies. Today, a year and a half into my doctoral student at UNIMORE, I find myself contemplating the following. Through participatory essaying, photographic narrative documentary, how can scaffolding resources of empowering process be used to develop, depict and critique daily lives, to active dialogic pedagogy, and to foster integrative learning? How can educators gauge the procedure of this art education through analysis and evaluation of the empowerment process themselves? the empowering process themselves as divides a scaffold in the classroom where the educator rather than the student become the object of research. I am approaching this research by autoethnography. In other words, the perspective of the teacher or educator. I trust teaching is a reciprocal process and choose myself as a subject and object of my own quest. Autoethnography provides a possible form of expression that can convey epistemic and aesthetic characteristic of a survey. Thus, the narration of art education is facilitated. I'm trying to show that photography and narration are two different languages of self-discovery, and the process of essaying photographic narrative documentary is a means of empowering a student at critical moments to analytically integrate what they have learned and to make sense of solving problems that arise in their daily life. Thereupon, my data will be photographic narrative of the participants' everyday life, which will be incorporated into the autobiographical layer of my writing. Here and now, my challenge is to visualize this process as a trigger for dialogic pedagogy and empowering approach for integrative learning. Thank you. But there is not anyone.
Thank you, Hammer. Thank you for that. You've posed some questions for us. You've already given us some questions about what you're looking for, perhaps from this session. But I have a question. So you've talked about the using the photographs, and you are the teacher that you're focusing on. So it's your autoethnographic perspective on this use. But I am a little bit confused about what exactly you're going to be doing. Are you going to be collecting data from the children or the other people, as well as using your own views and your own experiences?
In the process of each workshop, the collective attempt to provide a visual and communicable for lived experiences, and at the end of each workshop, a small portion of this body published in the form of exhibition or a book. My non-written references just refer to this unpublished collection, this published collection only. In other words, in all my research, whenever you will see the photos of it published before, the process of publishing is also part of the workshop, and to the extent of its concrete possibility, collective.
Okay, so the workshops, you're holding workshops with the people.
Yes, and also the workshop almost always is a little, it is not a short time. I did that similar to the workshop in university for children, for university students. It at least around 3 or 4 months.
Okay, and opening up to other people, any observations, any comments? Any advice?
Can you emphasize a little more clearly, Ahmed, what the specific autoethnographic aspects of your work will be? Will it be your reflections on taking the photographs or running the workshop? Specifically, what do you feel the autoethnographic elements will be?
Do you know, there is several methods that use photography and narration in classroom. I try to, and I know them. I know photo voice. I know other process that using photography in social researches. The things that we do with the student is completely different. So I try to write a kind of novel, and in the kind of play, that in that novel I explain everything that happen inside the classroom and the participation with the students. And through that, I can refer to the process of this workshop. So here I just refer everything as an observation, and it can be a kind of lived life.
So the novel that you describe, will that be the main literary content of your dissertation?
Yes, I think at least my thesis should have a part because it is the process that we do inside the classroom. It is lots of things in connection together that we can trigger something for children, and so this is one part, and also one another part is the way that we want to visualize the things that children or young students did that inside classroom with their photographs and narration, because also one part of my workshop, part of my thesis is the almost autoethnography of the children from their everyday life.
And how are they going to be collected, Hamed? Are the children going to write or speak or use photographs to give their autoethnographies?
As I said, essaying is a form of producing visual things inside photography and also inside videography. So they use narration, photography, and also documentation in connection together. So there is some written story or narrated story from the each student in each workshop, and it should be it completed around the workshop several times. So there is lots of micro narrative inside that.
Sacha, you've suddenly appeared. Do you want to make a comment? No, okay. Right. Well, I can see that a couple of people have made some comments on the chat, Hamed. So I think that it might be interesting for you to have a look at those comments. And I think that it's interesting to see a different sort of perspective. I think there is some work to be done to make the clarity of exactly what this is and how this is autoethnographic a bit clearer, and that will be coming. I'm absolutely certain that that's where you'll be going, and your supervisors will be working with you towards that. But I'm going to stop now and move on, so that we've got some time at the end of the period for us all to have a chat and program, because we now have Lara, who I see is there, who's talking to the time. My parents tied me to the chair because I can't stay still. Okay, then, Lara. Hello.
Here, a bit of context. I'm quite new to autoethnography. I just kind of took one class, and this was my final assignment, and I kind of fell in love with this form of writing. And I would clarify this as like a reflexive personal narrative autoethnography. I did talk about experience that also had my mother involved. So I did call her, and we kind of talked about the experience that occurred. Essentially, when I was 22, I realized that I had a core childhood memory that was warped. I remembered it wrong, but I didn't realize this until halfway through the writing process, which was really interesting. And I think I will mainly just be actually speaking about the incident where I was tied to the chair, but what it involves was me telling my teachers about this incident and not getting the reaction I thought I'd get. But I'll just speak on, actually, I'll just go through each. In the first scene, I kind of talk about how I told my teacher that I was able to finish my homework. And I told her that they tied me to the chair with a rope, and she was very alarmed, and essentially called Social Security on me, well, on my parents. And then I realized I don't think I'll have time to read everything. And then I wrote about what I remembered, essentially asking them to tie me to the chair, and then my parents did it. And then I was able to do all my work correctly and do it all on my own. That's what I remembered. And that was kind of act one. And essentially, I thought this was me having this sort of hidden resilience, that I was able to act on my own and have my parents help. With me being diagnosed, realizing that's how I think I coped with it, and why I had a late diagnosis. And then act two actually has to do with me kind of reaching out to my parents. And at first my dad was like, hey, I thought it was a belt, it wasn't a rope. So that's kind of writing with it all. And then with my mother, I asked her what happened, and she was essentially like, I remember everything. I will let you know. I will actually tell you what happened. And this is the bit where she calls my teacher. Well, actually, the teacher calls my mom and tells her about how I was apparently upset that day that she tied me to the chair. And my mother was taken aback because she did was upset. So looking back, I think my teacher thought I was, but I remember it as me being quite happy, weirdly enough, myself. And that's act two, kind of realizing the misconstrued narrative of it all. Yeah. And now this is act three. Oh gosh, I think I kind of made it a little confusing. And then at the end, I kind of talk about how, oh no, this is the second part. Sorry, I'm all over the place. This is the phone call with my mom and the teacher, how they had to talk about why they have to call Social Security. Or actually, no, I mixed this all up, and I apologize. This is the real kitchen incident where essentially, they suggested to tie me to the chair, and I said, okay. And then I didn't want it to be on me, and I was uncomfortable with it, and they took it off me, and then my mom had to help me with doing my work because I needed someone in the space. So you can ask me questions afterwards if I kind of made this all confusing. So act three actually has to do with the accurate memory held by my mother, exposing the self-gaslighting I had as a coping mechanism, to conceal any insecurities and internalized shame. So essentially, it wasn't this form of hidden resilience that I could do it all on my own, because at the end of the day, she had to sit with me and help me through it. So it has to do a bit with me speaking on selective memory retrieval, because it wasn't until like I was 22 that I realized this. And I kind of lived my whole life thinking that was a funny instance where I kind of picked everything up and I was totally fine. So I'm trying to integrate a crib theory term called compulsory able-bodiedness that was coined by Robert McGruer, I believe. That has to do with how people unconsciously pressure themselves to conform to neurotypical norms. Because I look back at it as a kid of not wanting to recognize my own quote unquote needs, and I wanted to act as if I could do it all on my own. So I see it as burying shame of feeling inadequate through gaslighting oneself, which is tied to perhaps also cultural norms, being a child of like an immigrant mother, and also just wanting to fit into like white Western middle class society. And having these struggles was gonna be seen as something that would hold me back. So I looked back at it as something I didn't want to confront. And I guess I'm very curious as to how other people may go through similar instances with compulsory able-bodiedness and how that can in fact impact late diagnosis, because it's almost like a reaction to the system's pressures also are something you would do onto yourself, if that makes sense. So that's kind of my piece. I wish I had more time to really like actually say the writing, but I hope that you were kind of able to get the gist. And yeah, I made a whole mind map of my whole process with it, and in the middle with like my memory, and then calling my parents, and then realizing how everything actually went. And then some people are like, "Are you sure your mom was correct?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm 100% sure that my memory is wrong." And it was just kind of fascinating to me to have to realize that my whole perception of it was incorrect and what that might mean. But that's the gist of the presentation, and I can go back if anyone has questions. Minutes was that?
Okay, Lara, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you for that. I was just thinking about times. Can you get rid of your? I can only see
Yeah,
your thingy on the screen at the minute. Your
of course. Yeah, I'll try to get rid of that. I'll try to stop screen sharing.
yeah.
Oh, right here. Okay, beautiful.
Great, thank you for that. I was thinking about instances when children have told teachers stuff, and that has set all hell loose.
Oh, yeah.
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 Can I ask you, are you moving towards a dissertation, a PhD with this exploration?
I'm currently doing a master's research project
Yeah.
on ADHD lived experiences, and I have participants that are sharing their own through art and zine making. We made art to tell people's experiences, and while I want to do something with autoethnography at some point, I was very inspired by it, and people also spoke about a lot of hobbies and interests and how they reflect back on that. I'm sure you might know that a lot of people with ADHD have a lot of like shifting interests that sometimes feel like abandoned hobbies. Whatnot. What I'm trying to say is on the realm and in the future, yes. And I'm very inspired by other people's experiences because I know mine can't really be generalized. If that answers your question.
Yes, I think so. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Anybody want to jump in now? Annalise
Does it?
had a
Oh, yeah.
comment. Yeah, sorry, Ken.
There are two Australian researchers called Bronwyn Davis and Suzanne Gannon have developed a method called collective biography, Lara. So they, through a process over a period of time, they exchange stories, kind of memory stories, if you like. And that process, that collective biographical process, is meant to strip away the cliches and the different points of view so that we get some sense of what really happened. Yeah, what really happened is obviously quite ambiguous, but there's a way in which there are clearly in your narrative there are conflicting senses of what actually went on and how it felt. So that might be quite their process methodologically might be quite good to look at. This sharing of memory stories, yeah, collectively.
Yeah, thank you.
I have upstairs, I'm looking after a couple of my myriad grandchildren at the present, and I have a 6-year-old upstairs who's autistic and ADHD, and trying to get into her way of thinking and trying to make the world a bit easier for her is a preoccupation of mine at the moment. So it's quite a timely piece, and I can hear her telling a story like yours and having it misinterpreted. So thank you for that. But I am going to move on because we're running out of time, unfortunately, and we are going to move on. If I can negotiate again all my various screens, not very well. I'm sorry. I really
I
am.
just want to thank you for sharing that with me, and also to Annalise. That's really lovely to hear that it's timely.
Yes. Okay, so we're moving on to Tuyet Mai Tran, who, and I probably pronounced that really, really badly. I'm really sorry. Who's talking about returning to a filmic inquiry into my Vietnamese grandmother's search for her resting place. And I remember a presentation by Tuyet last year, but I can't see her.
Where? also to have something to hold on to within the permanent flow of time. My grandmother said, we and these trees are very intimate. How we breathe in what the trees breathe out, closer even than mother and child. Chinese writer Gale writes about her mother and grandmother. Should have been scattered in the wind, along with her son. Later, I imagine my grandmother's ashes lying at the roots, becoming part of the land she had migrated to, Germany. She will nourish the trees as they nourish us, guiding by they provide our breathing.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Can you hear me? The sound has gone a little bit funny here for me. So I just have to ask you, did Grandma find a tree?
Yes, not on that trip, but after.
Okay, thank you. Good for her. And I also was interested in the comment on the thing that said different tree grades for different needs, and I'd really like to follow that up and see what that actually means. I don't know. Okay, thank you. That was interesting. You did present last year about this project, didn't you? Yeah, I thought I remembered seeing you. So very, very interesting, very different. Any comments, any observations, anybody, please? Or what did you want people to put forward? We haven't got very much time, I'm afraid. We've only got.
So I mean any comments, but basically whether it's made like sense, not whether you could understand what's happening, because like especially the first part was very rough part, and I felt like the second part was a bit more like put together already, and just what it brought up for you. I think it was beautiful. I think it was very, it touched me a lot. And you have connection with nature. I think it's so powerful. I feel emotional. It was really amazing. And also, the relationship between, a grandchild and a grandmother, and learning from her, views and that sharing. It's so powerful. It's really beautiful.
The film has to be a part of
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like PhD
Very much.
representation.
Yeah, sure. I agree with you. It's great. And the perspective from her, through her eyes, from the older eyes, is very beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. So, are you writing autobiographically around the film or the experience with it?
The process.
Yeah, of making the film as well. Is Grandma still alive? Ah, great. So will you talk with her more, maybe?
Yeah.
So she could be a co-collaborator?
A bit, as much, yeah.
Does she know what you're doing?
Yeah.
Great. Yes, I agree with you. It's a very moving.
Yeah.
Because
That message on the screen there saying she can't hear. And can you two just go closer to the laptop, which is where the microphone is, so that the people online can hear more clearly?
I feel there's an environment. We're in a climate emergency. We really are, and there's a very powerful message there. What your mum said, your grandma said. Are you thinking of making that a part of it?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you said it. There were so many different types, and that was
Yeah.
one, and I wasn't sure whether.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I've talked to your supervisors about it. We are in an emergency.
She's very onto that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
First of all, really lovely, very different from anything like I've seen so far. But it's what's just coming to me is like how are you separating yourself from the story and or when you're writing the autobiography? I think like this, there's a lot of your grandmom's story in this. How do you kind of separate this?
Do you mean how I write myself?
Yeah.
So the question was, how do I separate myself, or like what roles I play in the story? There's something I also wanted to ask, actually, back whether you felt at times whether you needed to see me, because I have a lot of footage where I'm kind of engaging. You only hear my voice and like very much my viewpoint. And some people have said, oh no, that would like break the magic, and some said, oh, I would really like to see you together.
I think I might respond. I think, yeah, so
Okay, I'm sorry to intervene. I have had a message to say that we really do need to finish now. So I'm going to stop now. I'm sorry. Thank you ever so much to everybody who presented. It was a great session. I feel very glad to have been able to take part in it. So